Yeah, good evening. I want to welcome you to the Damian Giles Discussion Group podcast. I'm Damian Giles. I want to introduce the topic today. George Zimmerman got shot. I was reading in the news today that he was shot in a road rage accident where he exited the vehicle and approached somebody and they had an altercation and the person shot. He wasn't hit per se, but shrapnel from glass
Yeah, good
flying
evening. I want to
hit
welcome
him in
you
the
to the
face.
Damian Giles Discussion
And
Group podcast.
shrapnel from glass hit him in the face, and he was taken to the emergency room. So we're going to discuss that tonight. I want to introduce you to the crew. We've got Brandy Cambrick, Nate Davis. We got special guest host tonight, Demetrius Wiley. Ben Paddock is our producer. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Brandy Cambrick. I am native of Houston, Texas, and just excited to get this going and started. Have a nice discussion and have a little fun tonight.
Glass hit.
So a fellow native of Houston, Texas, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Well, hello, I'm Ben. I'm the middle producer here, trying to get this thing going for everybody. From originally from Arizona, but I'm up here in Washington State, and can't wait to have more fun.
Go ahead to bear with us a little bit. We're having a few difficulties with sound and audio, but we'll work through it as the night progresses. So, Zimmerman was shot today. As we all know who George Zimmerman is. He is the person who shot and killed Trayvon Martin in quote-unquote self-defense. Yeah, it sparked a lot of outrage here in the United States when he was acquitted of all charges, and a lot of outrage and protest and people upset, and rightfully so. Somebody being able to just kill a kid, for whatever reason that he deemed so. Now there's a parent without a child, and as we all know, after the days after the trial, he's been in a lot of trouble and in the news for various reasons that a lot of us probably won't agree to, but nonetheless, he's in the news, and then today, somebody decided looks like to stand up to him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, like Damien said, he's been in trouble, in and out of trouble since the trial ended. Twice for assaulting his girlfriend, but of course those charges were dropped because she recanted. But then today, the gentleman who took a shot at Zimmerman, according to the story on the New York Times, he did it because Zimmerman showed him a gun, or he appeared to be pulling a gun, and the gentleman perceived a threat and acted out of self-defense. He does have a concealed carry permit, and he had his gun on him, and he perceived a threat from Zimmerman, so he pulled and fired into his vehicle. Quite frankly, I say it's karma coming back to kick him in his ass, because he's been through a lot of shit, he's done a lot of shit, and he's gotten away with a lot of shit. So now it's starting to come back on him, because since the trial and his acquittal, he's been in trouble nonstop. And that's just, hey, you're getting it back at you. You dished it out, and now it's your time to get it. And I don't think he can handle it. Quite simply, I just don't think he can handle it. But it's well deserved.
Brandy, I agree. I totally and completely agree with you. I mean, karma is real, and interesting enough, now he's the victim. Now he feels threatened versus him threatening someone else. And as you previously stated, he's a menace. Prior to him going to court and being acquitted, he was shown that he was a menace, but yet it's okay. So I agree with you. Hey, it happens. You get what you put out there.
Well, it looks like Demetrius needs to have her mic checked out. if you get a chance, take a look at that real quick. But let me go ahead and just step on in there while she gets her mic fixed up. Yeah, I totally agree. It's really kind of a messed up situation where this man is still walking today, and yet there's a young man that never even had a chance, you know. And here's this asswipe coming up and pointing out more guns at his girlfriend and at her father, at her father, and so on and so forth. And he's getting away with just acting a fool all day and all night long. And what actually kind of makes it even more funny is that there's there's groups out there that actually say, hey, you know, let's buy him more guns, because guess what? They're going to take it away because it was used in a murder. And hey, let's give him more guns. And sure enough, they did. But you know, as I turn it back to you, Damien, I just got a question. Do you find anything funny how that he's driving along and then all of a sudden, you know, he gets shot at? Did you expect that as well?
Karma's a bitch. You know, I expected it years ago. I'm thoroughly surprised that this guy's still walking the streets. I'm thoroughly surprised that he hasn't seriously done anything to screw up. You know, but they put OJ in jail for stealing his own stuff, and that man's in jail probably for the rest of his life. And Zimmerman's walking free. Right? It seems like what goes on in Florida is if you kill a person and there's nobody else to tell the other side of the story, you go home. Or you could be like in the Jordan Davis case, Michael Dunn. He left some people alive, and I think he's in jail for missing. Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I don't know, Nate. What do you think, man? I mean, do you think that it's going to be pushing forward to something like that?
See, and that's the thing, you know, dead people cannot defend themselves. So you create this sense of, well, if I'm going to shoot the person, I have to at least kill them. Because if I kill them, then 10 to 1, if they're black, they're going to get off. Like Damien said, going back to O.J. Simpson, he in jail for the rest of his life for actually taking back his stuff. I mean, this is some material stuff, you know what I mean? Just going in there. But this dude is out here walking, taking lives, continues to break the law, continues to test it, and you have these groups out there that keep encouraging him by giving them more weapons and supporting this action. So the key is this: when does the action or what he's doing become negative? I mean, in the eyes of those who are supporting him, it's okay. Hey, do it. Go for it. We encourage it. Be that person.
Well, I'm gonna tell while we're working on audio, I'm gonna step in real quick with Nate, and it's to answer your question, Nate. I don't know when it's gonna end, but the crazy part is, like you said, it's gonna keep going and it's gonna keep happening because, like, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the story on New York Times. Now, the name of the gentleman who got into it with Zimmerman today, he had an earlier confrontation with Zimmerman because he had been making threats to him, rather Zimmerman had been making threats to this man and stalking him, which kind of sounds along the same lines of what he did with Trayvon Martin, not necessarily making the threats, but stalking him, following him around the complex, following him in his car, stuff like that. So it's kind of like it's not going to stop. Honestly, the way I look at it, it's not going to stop until, truthfully, somebody puts a bullet in Zimmerman. And they don't not just graze him or not just he gets hurt by flying glass and has to go to the hospital. Truly, he ends up dead. Because, I mean, this man has been a menace, not like you said, Nate. He's been a menace nonstop since the trial, since the acquittal. And he just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. How many more passes is he going to get on the bullshit that he's doing? Now, Nate say if it had been you and you assaulted your girlfriend, yeah, you wouldn't be walking the streets. You'd be locked up somewhere, you'd be in jail somewhere, or depending on the girlfriend and her family, you'd be dead because then their family members may have come after you. So it's like, okay, how much longer, how many more passes is this man going to get? before somebody decides, okay, you know what, we need to put a stop to this.
You know, the one thing that always comes to mind when I hear stories about Zimmerman is, you know, it goes back to what Malcolm X said a long time ago about JFK. You know, it's the chickens coming home to roost. Eventually, somebody's gonna pop him, and they're gonna get him. Period. Right? Now, I would like to see whoever gets him use their, you know, the defense of stand your ground. They feared for his life, so they shot him. Right? Hey, karma's a bitch. It's a big, fat, hairy, nasty, ugly one, and it's gonna fuck you at every opportunity it gets. Every opportunity, one way or the other, is gonna get you. Right? So I have no sympathy for this man, none whatsoever. You know, he's getting what he deserves, just not enough of it. He needs to feel the pain, like like Trayvon Martin's parents are feeling. You see, there's no reason why an animal should be roaming the streets roaming the streets. I can't open up the door and let my dogs out the house without some type of repercussion, but the justice system opened up the door and let him out, roaming the streets, attacking people, pulling guns on people, jumping on women. Yeah, he just hasn't jumped on the right one. Because Lord knows I would love to meet Zimmerman. Love to. But people like him don't approach people like me. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is. I haven't found that out. And when I do find it out, I'm going to correct that problem so people like him can approach me. And then we can have a different type of conversation. You understand? What are your thoughts?
Go ahead, Demetrius.
Oh, I'm glad my audio is working out. I agree with everyone is saying. It seems to me that he is more of the aggressive type. And from what I've been reading on CNN, the guy Matt Apperson, this is the third time that they have had an issue, and reading more in depth, it stated that Zimmerman had followed the guy to his job, and it was later that he had an appointment in the area. And it's just a little weird that this guy is, it's kind of like, how many times is he going to get away with this aggressive activity before more people end up dead? So I agree with everyone.
Yeah, and then like to Damien's point about he's gonna run into somebody that's gonna cap his ass basically, and he wants him to use the stand your ground defense. But then if you look at that, look at what happened with the woman who tried to use that defense. She didn't kill anybody. She was trying to defend herself and her kids from her abusive boyfriend or ex-husband, whatever he was to her. But she was trying to defend herself from him, and she just fired a shot into the ceiling. She wasn't aiming at anyone. She didn't hurt anyone. But now she's in prison, I think if I remember correctly, looking at what, maybe 15, 20 years. And she tried to use the stand your ground defense, and it didn't work. So I guess I see your point, Damien, to use that as a defense. But then, okay, what do you do when it doesn't work? Then you have vigilantes coming out there, and then somebody just gonna shoot them down the damn street and be done.
Yeah, stand your ground. Well, again, when you mention that, Brandy, you have to look at the race. Okay, going back to incarceration rates. I mean, everyone. I'm not gonna say everyone, but there's always been this whole: if you are black, then the law does not support you. The law is not made for you. The law is not here to help you per se. And it's always this thing of, well, what if the roles were reversed? If this had been a black guy, shooting a white kid, people send me, just crazy. They'll bring up, well, why doesn't anyone ever talk about when a white kid is shot by a black guy? And I'm like, black folks have been murdered, killed, hunted for hundreds of years. Laws have been put in place to make sure that black folks could be hunted and killed for hundreds of years. So when you look at a system that was created and was backed up by a country that allowed that, then you realize that, you know what, the only justice for somebody like this man is for him to be hunted, killed, and murdered, because he doesn't even respect you as a person. He doesn't even look at him as a human being. Even go past George Zimmerman. Let's just look at how many. I mean, just the whole idea of you having the legal right, because there at one point you could legally go out and hunt black folks, and it was okay. It was okay. You can look it up. It's out there. So why change? Civil rights been killed.
Go ahead, Demetrius.
It's it's I never like to play the race card or even think about stuff like that. But then, some people always say I'm living in a fantasy land. But I do wonder, I don't know. I just wonder, why certain laws apply to certain people. And I believe this is the same state where the group of guys were, they had the loud music going, and didn't the guy shoot at them and accidentally kill the teenager? Is that correct? Is this the same state?
Same state. Yes, it is. And Nate brings up a good point
Okay.
about laws having been created, legalizing the hunting and killing of blacks. One of the first laws after slavery against black people that was created was loitering. You have possession of a whole race of people, and then at the stroke of a pen, it's stated that you can't own human beings anymore, because slavery was never abolished. Even if you read the 14th Amendment, slavery was never abolished. So let's get that straight now before we get to talking about the abolition of slavery. You set all these people free that have no place to go, no home to return to, no nothing. So the first thing to put these people back in captivity or confinement is to institute a law. That law was loitering. So you got all these black people standing around with no place to go, hungry, confused, mentally ill, all sorts of things, and you roll up on them with the police that was originally instituted to protect the interest of whites, property, what have you. It wasn't to protect and serve the community. It was to protect the interest of others and to hunt freed slaves. So you have this population of newly released black people roaming the streets, and the first thing you do is lock them up and charge them with loitering. What chance do you have? So you move forward a few years, a couple of decades. You have the institution of Jim Crow, which helped usher in the first bombing of Americans on American soil. The bombing of Black Wall Street, right? Nobody went to jail in that either. So then you have other instances of, in the 60s, fire hoses being turned on blacks, dogs being turned on blacks, beaten in the street just because they want the right to vote. We still don't really have the right to vote. We have the privilege. So when you take all that and you couple it into things like stand your ground and how that affects us and how that affects those that aren't us, it's not set up for us. It never has been, and it never will be. Because I can't go any place and say that I felt my life was in danger, and first of all, somebody's even going to believe me. That's just the long and short of it. And I'm 6'7", over 300 pounds, and I'm black. My appearance in itself brings about fear in those that don't look like me or know me or understand me. It brings about fear. So when you have a 17-year-old child that's walking the streets, coming back from the store from getting some refreshments, some Skittles, and some tea, to go back home to finish watching, some games on TV with his dad, and he can't even get down the street safe without somebody approaching him because he's a thug and on drugs. And that's a direct quote from the tapes of George Zimmerman. Um, he can't even walk down the street without being harassed. Right? None of us will never know the truth unless George Zimmerman grows a conscience and decides to tell us exactly what went on. If he got his ass whooped, and the last thing he could do was think to shoot him because he was getting his ass whooped, because I don't believe the narrative, and anybody with common sense wouldn't believe that narrative. But then you have some that do. Well, that's between you and whomever. But the bottom line is, this guy still today is walking the streets. And the counter case to that would be his name, Michael Dunn, the one that fired all those shots into that vehicle, killing Jordan Davis, an Air Force vet, by the way, killed him because his music was too loud. And the only reason why he's in jail today, not even for, on death row, he's serving 20 plus years, and he's in jail for missing. He's in jail strictly because he left somebody alive to tell that story. And that makes no sense to me. But that's perfectly okay because there's people out there that justify that action.
Well, and like you said, Damien, it's, first of all, let me just say the stand your ground law, that's just bullshit. Like you said, it's not set up for us. It wasn't made for us. It wasn't designed for us. It'll never work in our favor. That's just straight bullshit. And again, using the example of the woman in Florida who was trying to defend herself and her children, and she's trying to use that stand your ground, and it did no good. She ends up in jail. But to your point, Damien, about the hoses being turned on us back in the 60s, to an extent, we still have that going on. It's just not water hoses. Now it's tear gas. And it's the tear gas bombs that are being thrown at us, or the nightsticks and the riot gear and all of that shit being used on us when we're trying to peacefully assemble. That's like with Baltimore. Now, all the news stations are covering all the riots and the fires and the fights and all of this shit, but there were hundreds of peaceful demonstrations going on. There were hundreds of instances where you see people not attacking the police, that they're bringing them water, they're bringing them food, they're trying to help them out, but that shit didn't get broadcast. It's all about the negative side of shit. And then again, they're bringing up with the riots in Baltimore. They're saying, oh, it's a black thing and it's black people and we're doing this just because, but look at what happens when a football team wins or loses a game, or a basketball team wins or loses a game, and these people go out in the streets and riot and destroy vehicles and burn down buildings. Then it's okay, they're not thugs, they're not rioting, they're just kids, they're revelers, or they're just expressing their opinions, or whatever the case may be. It's basically bullshit. Long story short, it's all bullshit, to your point, set up to keep us down. It's not ever going to work to our advantage.
You are absolutely 100% correct. And going back to what Damon said, again, it's as a black male, I'm already looked at as a threat. It's just bottom line. No matter how big you are, no matter how small you are a threat. Are you a threat? Because the media perceives you and portrays you as a threat. Kind of what you said, Brandy. You talk about Baltimore. There were, again, numerous people out there that were bringing food, bringing water, and protesting peacefully. But what the news media show? We got the violent Negroes. We got the ones that's looting. That's all they're about. And unfortunately, that has been the message, again, since our importation into, actually since the end of slavery. Because you sit there and you think about it, you say, okay, well, I walk in somewhere, and first thing, all eyes on me. Okay? Why? I'm like a customer like anyone else, But because they have said, the media has said, you know what, if a black guy comes in and he's of significant size and he has dreads, oh, he must be some type of the new nigger thug, or he must be some type of deviant, or someone that's going to do something to harm me, because on the news, for the past few days, all these black people have been going around stealing. All these black people are going around murdering. All these black, so he must be that way. And the really sad thing about all this is that I talk to many people from different countries, and when they come and they talk to me, as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with the guy from Pakistan. We had a nice in-depth conversation, and after speaking to me, his words were, you know what, you're not like what my parents said that you would be. So he already had, his parents had already put into his mind that, you know what, black people were ignorant, were negative, violent, and prone to not be productive citizens. Now, think about it. We think, okay, these images are just being seen here, but these images are being projected across the world. So the key is this. How do you, I guess, change the image? Well, first of all, we need to get into owning more media outlets so that we can get our message out there. Because think of it this way. We own less than 0.0001% of the media outlets out there. So, of course, the message of negativity is going to get out there. We had a station, BET, as soon as Viacom took over. Now we have no more about being black. It's all about reality shows. It's all about black exploitation. I mean, there is nothing of substance on BET whatsoever. So it's just a situation where we as people have to, I guess, come together some way or some fashion and, I don't know, create some type of financial power to create an outlet so that we can get a more positive message out there. I mean, even doing this right here, you have a bunch of us sitting there talking about what's going on. I mean, I don't think here we're talking about thugging, or we're talking about taking people's lives, or talking about doing anything negative. But again, we're just one small group. So honestly, it's really about getting out there and for us to change the message and not allowing the mainstream media to dictate who we are and what we're perceived as.
Go ahead, Demetrius.
You know, we all know what the history books have taught us, what our parents have seen, and Nate is correct when stating, when he was speaking with the guy from Pakistan, and the guy said, "Oh, you're nothing like what my parents said you were." So, with that being said, where do we begin the healing? Like, we all know it's shitty. It's shitty. It's shitty. It's shitty. Yes, we all know, but where do we begin the real, honest healing process in all of this?
So
that would be my thought.
So the healing process, I think, is not the first step. The first step is organization. And that's the problem race-wide amongst us as blacks. We talk about a lot of things, but the only thing we can really come together on is a plate of free food and free before 10 and drink specials. If you mention to somebody about group economics and getting together, putting your money together and coming to the table with something, nobody wants to do it. Oh, I don't trust that. You know, they've got all kinds of excuses. But the bottom line is, if you look at the narrative nationwide, people have started going to the table with money, and those are the people that are getting justice. If you look at the LGBT community, persecuted, all kinds of shit. You know, they have this whole thing about gay is the new black, which is bullshit, but that's a different story, a different conversation. But they came to the table with money, and they got legislation, period. You look at the Hispanic community. They got their celebrities in their community, and they got together. They put together an initiative. They went to the table with money during an election year, and they got shit done. Only thing we come to the table with money on is to buy ribs. Other than barbecuing, we need to come to the table and practice group economics. We need to buy our own politicians and put our politicians in office, regardless to what their political affiliation is. if they're willing to do for us and take our money, then that's what they need to. That's what we need to be doing. Is coming to the table with some money. We need to get organized and come to the table because it's the only way it's gonna stop. I said to a friend of mine here not long ago, and I think I said this on a previous show that we did, that as a heterosexual black male, there's no protection out there for me, no resources, no nothing. But if I were gay, and not speaking ill on gay people, but if I were gay, then I'd have a whole separate set of laws protecting me as a man if I were gay. But as a heterosexual black man, there's nothing out there for me. My life can be taken at any given time. I can be pulled over and harassed by the cops, which has happened to me and my family before. And I talked about that previously. But there's nothing out there. Absolutely, positively nothing.
And you know what, Damon? You're absolutely correct. I mean, it goes back to the whole dehumanization of it. I mean, not being looked at as a human being, and sadly, and through all the marches, through all the the prayer and all the other things, I mean, we're still basically where we were. The only difference, and I tell people, is that now we have social media. Now, when an act happens, everyone has a cell phone now. Everyone has a camera phone now. So it's one of those situations where it can't just be said, well, this black guy attacked me, so therefore I had to, defend myself. Now there's video saying, well, wait a minute, no, the black guy didn't attack you. You basically went over there and you forced yourself on him and trying to defend himself. You felt threatened because you kind of got more than what you bargained for, which I still say with George Zimmerman. Now you feel like, well, I got to kill this guy because to save myself. Now I'm the victim versus being the aggressor. And so I was having this conversation. I was just trying to figure out, what has really and truly changed, and not much at all. Damien, like Damien said, you have all these protections for anyone else unless you're black. I mean, and that's just real. This whole idea of, well, the LBGT movement is the new civil rights is I'm kind of with you. That's some bullshit. I'm sorry, because here's the deal. I don't know you gay unless you tell me. I'm black no matter what. I walk out this house. I have to deal with that monkey. As soon as I walk out the house, it's like, hey, you know what? You could be walking out and somebody run down the street. Hey, you know what? He must have did something. Oh well. And no video. That's it. My son doesn't have a father anymore. My wife, husband is gone. And that's kind of, how it is here. And it's like going back to what you said about the coming together. You're right, Damien. They had this Hispanic community. You got the celebrities out there. They were like, yeah, we got to get this immigration done. No, we don't want to lose this person. We got the dreamers. We have some other stuff. But where are black celebrities at? I mean, hell, you got Oprah, the billionaire, but yet you building schools in Africa. I'm like, really? Are you serious? Everybody talking about, Jay and Beyonce, but yet not hearing anything. But you buying 2.6 million homes. You see what I mean? So you're right. There has to be another group that comes together. Even our black legislators, I look at. I don't understand living in Texas how Sheila Jackson Lee gets elected every election. I don't understand. I vote against her every single time, and I'm like, what is going? I talk to other people. They're like, yo, we voted against her. How does she keep getting elected? It's this whole idea of, well, eventually if I keep doing the same thing, then things will change. But that's the definition of madness, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's just plain stupidity. It's one of those situations where it's like, I don't know, like sometimes I talk to some people who are like, well, if this doesn't happen, well, I'm gonna pray to God and I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing. I'm like, no, get up off your ass and put some action into play. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll get what you're trying to achieve. So it all goes back to what I was saying before. With Damien, you're right. We have to get together. I was talking about getting the media outlets. You're right. We got to get together. We got to start paying these politicians. We live in a capitalistic society. If you have the money, if you have the goal, you have the power. Bottom line.
Yeah, the fun things that I can see on this all is you know, what would happen if George Zimmerman went to fucking Disney World, you know, and he sees Mickey Mouse, you know? I mean, he's I guess half black. Would he shoot Mickey Mouse or something? I mean, I can see him doing that. Oh no, he's a fucking threat. He's hugging a child. Oh shit, you know. And but the funny, the what's interesting to me is like the background. When you can look at everything at the surface and say, yeah, there's riots. Yes, there is. These terrible tragedies are happening. Yes, when you look at the surface of it all, that's, you know, it really is a horrible thing. But then when you take a step back and you look at the background and you start looking and you're like, oh, wait a minute here, I see, wait a minute, we got a stand your ground law happening. How the fuck did that get into play? That's like a one-way fucking ticket for anybody to go kill anybody they feel is a threat. And to me, Florida is filled with racist fuckers, and they will be inbreeding for the rest of their goddamn lives, and they will be paranoid of all black people, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Mexicans, probably even Texans. I'm not sure. Be careful, guys. I don't know what they'll be paranoid of, but I think that they would just, you give them a law like that, it would happen, no matter what you do. And plus, one more thing is like other things that are happening in the background. You're talking about like voting, gerrymandering is happening on a constant basis. You have a guy that you're voting against. Guess what? He's still getting in there. How the fuck is he getting in there? It's the gerrymandering. It's what's happening in the background. The Voting Rights Act of 1965. It just keeps on going. It keeps on going in this perpetual motion. They just take it away more and more and more. So to me, it's such a background thing that's happening at all times. So, and that's my little thought on it. Brandy?
I'm with you. The background that's the big issue, because no one. It's kind of like what you said, Ben, and then also going back to what Nate and Damien were saying about coming together as a community, people getting together, joining together, working together as one. Like, for example, taking it all the way back to the boycott of the buses back in the 60s. A lot of people talk a lot of shit about that, but at the same time, if you really stop and think about it, it worked, because the black community as a whole, they got together, they decided, okay, this is what we're going to do. We know how we can start to try to make change. And then they did it, and they stuck with it, and they continue to stick with it. And you saw the impact of it. You try something like that these days, you got the young kids, the generation, what is it, Y now? The folks that's coming behind us. Oh man, I ain't doing that. That ain't making me no money. I ain't about that. Then you have the older generations who's like, okay, well, you know what? It's been like this so long. Why just mess with it now? Nothing's going to change. And then say you have our generation, a few of us may get together and be like, okay, yeah, we can do this. We can get this going. But that few can't do it by themselves, because we can't garner enough traction and enough people to get it going. Folks are too easily discouraged. They're too easily pushed back, and they don't want to work for it. But let it be like somebody, like we talk about all the time. Let the newest pair of J's come out. Oh, they got folks lining up 2, 3, 4 days before they come out, lines wrapped around the buildings. Same thing for the damn iPhones. Whatever latest technology is coming out, people line up days, weeks in advance, sitting out there to do that, to put money in other people's pocket, but they won't do that to put money in their own pockets. And that's crazy as shit. But then they expect, okay, well, we need to start, we're going to move up, and we need to move up, and we need to get in the top of this, that, and the other, and the black people need to be strong and stand together. Okay, here's an idea. Pull your head out of your ass and stop thinking about just yourself and everybody else. I was talking about that with a friend earlier today, and he was saying that, you know, a lot of people give the Hispanic community a lot of flack, because they talk about the Hispanics and the Mexicans, and you got like 3 or 4 families living in one house. But again, to Ben's point, if you look in the background of that, what they're doing is they're working together. You got these 2, 3, 4 families in one house, but everybody's working. They're bringing their money in. They're making the house that they live in better, and they're putting themselves in a better position, so maybe one family can move out, and when they move out, they'll do good. They'll survive. They'll strive. and they'll make a better life for themselves and their kids and their kids and their kids. And then even when they get in and they're making this money, they're investing in their own businesses. They're opening up their own businesses. Same things with the Muslim community. They stand by each other. They support each other. They put money back into their own community. But you come to the black community and it's that me mentality. Well, okay, well, what you gonna do for me? Well, yeah, I'll go in on this with you, but what do I get out of it? It's not necessarily always what you get out of it. It's what's going to help better the next generation or further down the line. And until we can get our people to see that and get to that level, shit like George Zimmerman shooting folks and the stand your ground bullshit is going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to go on. So I'm like Damien said, the sticking together and the coming together is the start.
So I want to touch on something that Nate said, and he was talking about about prayer. I ask people all the time. They say, "Well, just pray about it. You know, to get better." I ask them all the time, "When have you got down on your knees in a position of submission, prayed for something, got up, and then there it was. Your prayer was answered." Right? See, a lot of questions I've seen of it, but asking people with that mindset is, so when you get sick, do you go to church or do you go to the hospital? And the response, well, hell, I'm going to the hospital. Well, if you believe that prayer will fix everything, why don't you just go to church and pray your cancer away, or pray your illness away, or what have you? You know, people say, well, you know, I've got cancer, I'm going to pray for you. And you know, the cancer goes into remission for whatever means, and somebody would have the audacity to say, "Well, you know, I prayed for you, you know, and God fixed it, Jesus fixed it." How many people have you seen pray an amputee grows its limb back, and it happens? Not one, not a single one. You see, so look, prayer/meditation is good to get your mind right. But if that's what you're doing in an effort to solve a problem, that alone has never solved the problem. And people will refer to the Bible and say, well, faith without works is dead. Well, why don't you just skip the faith and go straight to the work? Because that's the only thing that's going to get anything done is putting the goddamn rubber to the fucking road. At least that's been my goddamn experience. I've never, ever prayed for anything and then poof, it happened. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. You know, the bottom line is you got to come together on it. We got to come together. You know, we sit around looking for a leader, someone to save us, and someone to do for us and help us instead of helping ourselves and doing for ourselves. In the meanwhile, we're being taken out, we're being shot, we're being killed. You know, we're being wrapped up in gym mats and hung upside down. We're being lynched still. You know, what's it going to take for you to open your eyes? You know, what's it going to take for you to turn down long enough for you to make this happen? That's just the long and short of it. It's the truth. It's sickening. It doesn't work. You know, I see people turning up on Saturday and in church, you know, Facebook and quotes from their pastor. Well, how true are you with what you're doing on a real side? You know, right now you have George Zimmermans all day long, walking up and down our streets in uniform, plain clothes, all of them packing, all of them. It could be your kid today, it could be my kid tomorrow, it could be somebody else. But the question I have and want to pose is, what if? Matter of fact, let me backtrack. Let's take it back to the late '80s, early '90s when Congress got involved and attempted to ban the 2 Live Crew. If you think on that situation, what that was is some white politician's wife caught their son listening to Pop That Pussy, and she was all offended. Tipper Gore is who it was that led the charge on that one. She got so fucking offended that her kid was listening to some Luther Campbell, listening to Pop That Pussy. Okay. Then there was this whole outrage of, oh my God, we've got to ban this music. We've got to ban this music. We have to ban this music. Fuck the First Amendment. This shit can't happen. Okay? Plug in for X and solve for Y. Is it going to take a white politician's kid being shot and killed by the police for them to open their eyes and see what the fuck we're talking about and what we're going through and experiencing? Is that what it's going to take? Right? We already know that these politicians' kids don't join the military, in large, as a whole. You have some that do, some politicians that do. It is what it is, but let's be real about it. When people ask George Bush about why his twin daughters out fucking up, how come they weren't in the military fighting for his cause? It didn't happen. Right? It did not happen. It's going to take a politician on that level of Al Gore being Tipper Gore's wife. It's going to take something on that level to institute a change, because it's going to take one of their kids to get fucked up. Because until one of their kids gets scuffed up in the process, nothing's going to change. Right? You see these odds and ends, twos and fews about a white kid being shot by a cop, and then you have all these white folks up and on. Well, see, hey, look, this white kid got killed by the cops. There's no marches for him. Well, fuck, get out and march if that's what the fuck you want. Because the bottom line is you ain't fucking marching for us. Okay, you say you helped put Obama in office, whoop you fucking do. That doesn't solve any motherfucking thing. It doesn't solve shit. You can't blame Obama for this shit that's going on. You can't. It's not his fucking fault. He's got nothing to do with it. That's the civics lesson, and we ain't gonna get into it. But the bottom line is, a white kid gets shot, yeah, it'll make the news. The only reason why it makes the news when our children are being shot is because we go out and tear shit up. Right? But then, after you're done tearing shit up, what do you do then? You look at Ferguson, you look at Baltimore, they tear shit up, peaceful protest, violent protest. Peace and violence ain't solved the goddamn thing yet. Because no matter what, they're still kicking your ass. Our ass. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, both dead. Message on opposite ends of the spectrum, still dead. At the hands of somebody white. Be it the government, be it a lone actor, whoever, however you want to term it. Still dead. So if peace and violence aren't working, what does?
Said a mouthful. Well, and going back to the shootings and everything, I posted something on my page today where, everybody's been up in arms about these 2 police officers that were killed in Hattiesburg, and then it was, I think today was Police Appreciation Day or something. They basically have a website where they list all the names of all the police officers who were being killed. And in 2014, the total number of police officers killed was 50, and the line of duty was 51, and they said it was an 89% jump. Right now, when you think of this number, you think, okay, so that's white, black, Chinese, multicultural, so on and so forth. The number of black Americans killed by police in 2014 was 238, and that's just one race. So my question is this: if it's not about trying to get rid of us, then what is it really about? I mean, just look at that disparity between those numbers. And that 51 police officers that were killed, that was multicultural. That's including everybody. I mean, that's just it. But 238 black Americans. Okay, that's one race, one group. So when people come out with the whole idea of, well, the racism is not there, or everything is fair. I mean, it's the statistics are there, the numbers are there. And I'm kind of like you, Damon. How many of us have to die before stuff really changes? I mean, we already know we live in a society where, again, if you have the gold, you run the world. We know this. We know that. Okay. When you say, now going back to when you're talking about with the Hispanics, or talking about the Hispanics and living in the household and then the family leaving, so on and so forth. Well, you have to also remember this too. A lot of these other cultures or other races that come here, they have an understanding of their culture. Their culture and their belief system was not stripped of, generations ago. The issue with blacks was this, is that you get a group that was brought here and they were everything, literally everything was stripped out, it bred out of them, everything was taken. So, and you're basically less than a human being. So once the chains come off and once everything is said and done, what do? You're not educated. You're in a strange area. You really don't understand how life is. All you've seen is what these oppressors have done. All you've seen is how success is equated to what they've done. So in order for me to come out of my area, I must emulate and I must try to be like that, who they've treated me like less than a human being. So when you come back to this whole idea of this culture of helping each other, it's like, okay, well, what can we do now? I tell everybody, this is my biggest thing. I think the worst thing that could happen to people of color was integration. I think integration messed up everything, because what it did is it took being black as negative. Now you have this idea of, well, I don't have to be at this lower level anymore. Now I can go and be like this white group over here. I don't have to just go to my schools. I can go to their schools and be educated like them, because you know what? Their schools are better. They're acting like them will get me further along. Being black, not so much. Being black, you can't be black, because being black is negative. I had a conversation, just to go back, I'm always talking to someone, with a 50-year-old woman, 50-year-old lady. Now, we were just talking, and we were talking about kids' hair, and so she was saying, well, I have a nephew, or I have a grandson, and his hair he has bad hair, and your son has good hair. And I had to stop. I was like, hold on, stop. You actually told this kid that. And she was like, well, yeah, that's just something we say. I'm like, no, that's negative. When you tell somebody has bad hair, you're giving them a negative. You're basically telling a kid, you know what? You're inferior. You're creating this inferiority complex based on just the fact of the grade of his hair. So it's like, that's not right. And she couldn't fathom why that was negative. So we sat and had a whole dialogue. I actually had to go to Google and explain to her why that was bad and how she was hurting her grandson by saying those things. Well, I say all that to say, you have this, I guess I'm not going to even say a similar attitude, but this whole idea of white is right, black is bad, that's being passed down from generation to generation. Okay? Then again, you have a media outlet or media that says, hey, you know what? Look at your commercials. Whenever you think of high-end dining or high-end travel or high-end luxury or whatever, what do you see? You see a bunch of white people. Real talk. Okay? You're starting to see more people of color in like a couple of Honda commercials. But hell, I think one of the most racist commercials out there to me, and maybe I'm just overstepping, but I think it's that Popeyes commercial. I'm like, you got this black chick on there, and she talking about it, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, nobody see nothing wrong with this? And this commercial's been on, what, for a couple of years. You had another Kentucky Fried Chicken, black people in the kitchen cooking. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. White Colonel, yeah, the herbs and spices. I'm like, come on, man, really? So I think, honestly, what has to be done, going back to what we were saying before, it is a matter of coming together, but you have to get people out of the mindset. You have to, I guess, deprogram the negative programming that has been passed on from generation to generation. Like people like us, we're educated. We read. It's for us to take what we've learned and to pass it on to the next group, to expose people to. I always tell people all the time, usually when you know better, you do better. So if you've never been exposed to anything better, then how do you know to do any better?
You make valid points. It basically, to some of what you said, is each one teach one. Basically, is what we go back to. But it's, again, everybody's so wrapped up in themselves. It's all about themselves and what they can do and how far they can go. And like you said, with that whole damn Popeyes commercial, that's that's stereotypical in and of itself. That's just, okay, all black people like fried chicken. So I'm surprised the Kool-Aid commercial ain't come up lately, or the damn watermelon or something like that, because it's just all stereotypes. But it's hard. Like I struggle with trying to teach with my daughter every day. I'm trying to tell her, like I think I forget if it was either you, Nate, or Damien that said earlier in the broadcast that continuing to do the same thing and expecting something different is the definition of insanity. And I tell my daughter that all the time. Like, for example, if something as simple as like her learning how to play basketball. She's like, well, I keep doing this and keep doing this, and it's not working, it's not working. Okay, daughter, here's an idea. Switch up what you're doing. It's not going to change. You're not going to get better if you keep doing the same thing. That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. To Damien's point of going back to the prayer and not putting work behind it, I see both sides of that. I'm all for the prayer. I'm all for believing in your faith and all of that. But like he said, also behind that faith, you need to put some work in. You need to get up off your ass and you need to do your part if you expect the Lord God above to do his part. So using myself, for example, last part of last year, I was suddenly hit with a sickness and it left me basically crippled. Couldn't walk, couldn't use my hand, couldn't work. So I was laid up in bed 4 or 5 months. Doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. Nobody could tell me anything. I'm in pain, can't do anything. And yeah, I was praying because it was a scary situation. Didn't know what was going on, and I'm praying. But at the same time, I'm praying if I was not taking the medication that they were giving me and going to the therapies and going to see them for X-rays and MRIs and spinal taps and all of that. If I wasn't doing all of that, to this day, I'd still be laid up in my bed in pain, not able to walk, not able to use my hands. So there's nothing against faith, but like Damien said, if you can have all the faith you want, that's fine. Nothing against that. But at some point, you need to do some work because faith alone is not going to make it happen. And that's what we have to get our generation to understand. Same thing with these young kids. You need to put some work into the shit that you want. You can't just sit on your ass and expect that, oh, well, it's owed to me. We don't owe you shit. Really, we don't. We don't owe you a damn thing. You need to put forth some effort if you want something to come out of this.
Yeah, I can agree with that. You got to put some work in. Can everybody hear me? Just real quick.
Yeah. So
okay.
I can hear you.
I can hear you. Yes.
Somebody prayed for Trayvon Martin. Somebody prayed for Jordan Dunn. Somebody prayed for Oscar Grant. Somebody prayed for Eric Garner. Somebody prayed for Tamir Rice. By the same principle, somebody prayed for their killers. Who won? Who won? Right? I never tell anybody I'm going to pray for you. Because me saying that I'm going to pray for you or hearing somebody's going to pray for me is the equivalent of saying, hey, I ain't doing shit for you. You're on your own. Because you're not extending a hand to help me. You're not breaking me off with some wise counsel. You're not giving me no knowledge, no assistance. Be it what that assistance may be. But just to say that you're going to go home, get on your knees, and talk to something or somebody, it doesn't help me one damn bit. Not at all. If you call me and say that you're in trouble, then I'm going to do everything I possibly can to help you. Anybody that knows me knows this. And I don't mean praying. I'm talking about putting some physical action, some brass tacks, some rubber to the goddamn road action behind what it is I'm talking about or what it is you need my assistance with. Because if you knew I wasn't going to do shit for you, you wouldn't have called me in the first place if all you was going to get from me is I'm going to pray for you. Right? Now, right now, somebody's praying for George Zimmerman. Right now, somebody's still praying for Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Oscar Grant, Jordan Dunn. Praying for all these people. Praying for all of them. What has it done? Those guys are dead and in the ground. It's not helping them now because prayer ain't going to bring them back. But their killers are still walking the streets free. In order to stop that bullshit, two things have to happen. One is you got to start waking folks up. By whatever means you got to do it. If you have to take them and physically grab them by the shoulders and show them, or if you just have to lay hands on them, slap the shit out of them, get them to wake up. Right? Because I'd rather slap the shit out of you than somebody else do it. Because if somebody else slaps you, they may slap you with something that's going to kill you. I'm just going to slap you with my hands, with some words, and try to get your mind right. You see, that's a lot of the problem that we have today. Sadder part, people that need to hear this message aren't going to hear it. Sadly, what all of us are saying right now is going to fall on deaf ears, be a child or adult. It's going to fall on deaf ears. You see, the second point, as I said again, we need to come to the table and organize. Stop waiting for somebody to organize us for us and just do it. Right? White supremacy is not led by any one person. It's an ideology that people have bought into. We don't have that amongst ourselves. And that's from time in the beginning. You know, when it was preached and forced upon us that you don't use your resources to uplift your community and better yourself. Your time spent is recreational. And that's still prevalent amongst us as black people. Any given time, any given city, any given place, 7 days a week, you can go somewhere and find black folks partying. Ain't nothing wrong with partying. I do every now and then my damn self. I do. There's nothing wrong with that. But I also get my ass up every morning to go to somebody's job. And that's just the real of it. I do everything I got to do to keep my kids out of trouble, keep my daughter off the pole, and keep my sons out of the streets. Because I wasn't raised running around in the streets, causing problems. I mean, yeah, I was your average teenager, doing what teenagers do. I did. Thank God that I didn't get in anybody's trouble and wind up in jail or run through the system. Be it what it may. But the bottom line, everybody, I mean, we could say each one, reach one, teach one, we could say that. But everybody's not meant to go everywhere with you. Those that came to a certain position, to a certain spot with you, cannot go to the next waypoint thereafter. Some people just aren't meant to go with you. You can't save everybody. Some people are just going to have to get left behind while the rest of us move forward. A great analogy of that is, if everybody here is old enough to remember the TV show Cheers, was when what was the mailman's name? It was either the mailman or Norm.
Cliff?
Norm.
It was Cliff, right?
Yeah, Cliff was the mailman. Norm was the big fat fucker.
Yeah, but I think it was Cliff that was explaining the buffalo theory, where, you know, a herd of buffalo can only move as fast as slowest buffalo. Eventually, the slowest buffalo gets caught and killed off, thus making the herd move faster. He equated that to drinking beer. He says, now you take that philosophy and equate it to sitting here drinking beer. Eventually, my slower blood cells, or my brain cells, are going to get killed off, thus making my brain operate faster and more efficient. Therefore, beer is good for you. Now, it was funny. We can laugh at it, but you know what? There's a lot of logic behind that. In the sense of everybody that came can't go with you. They're not meant to go with you. Some of them are just going to have to get left behind. And those that get left behind, oh well. The ones that keep up with the herd, keep up with the pack that's moving forward, are the ones that need to get on board. Question is, how do we get them on board? How do we get people to see what it is that we need to do, that we need to organize. But I hear prominent people, I'm not going to call names, but I hear prominent people say all the time about how we need to come together and what we need to do. And then they say, well, brother, why don't you organize? Oh, hell no, you ain't killing me. So when you say that, that goes back to what Malcolm X said in one of his, famous and immortal speeches. You're afraid to bleed. And if you're not afraid to shed your own blood for the cause that you believe firmly in, there's no point in even doing it. Because if you're not afraid to die for what you believe in, it's pointless. Now, what we're seeing with these young kids out there, they got nothing else. They got nothing to lose because they were given nothing. These people are ready to die. These kids are ready to die. And they're showing you every day, man, hey, look, fuck your Bible. Fuck your prayer. You keep that bullshit because your prayer and your Bible ain't feeding me. It's not keeping the lights on in my house. It's not helping my mom and my dad with their disabilities and their ailments. I got to get out here and I got to get it for me. And that's what these kids are talking about, right? They're not concerned about curfew. They're not concerned about the media. And that was evident highly in Baltimore when those kids, they had the picture painted of them just being rogues and thugs and this and that and the other. First thing they said, no, bullshit. Because you weren't here when we were peacefully protesting. And even though we still are, you're not showing that. You're still trying to create a narrative of us fucking up when we're standing here telling you that's not what we were doing. Now, that was from the Crips and the goddamn Bloods that said that. Now, that didn't draw a moment of pause of what alcoholics like to call a moment of clarity. I don't know what else will. I don't know what else will.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with you on that one. It's been a long time coming, but I would say that it is kind of amazing, coming from this kind of background that I have. It's just being on the reservation. We see that as well. We see alcoholism, we see drug use, we see just this horrible things that happen on a constant basis, and coming together as we did on our tribe, we really pushed how we educated ourselves and how we almost took the law in our own hands. We have our own police department, we have our own fire department and stuff like that, and it takes that kind of organization as a collective. But it even takes those leaders to stand up and go, hey, we need to move this in the right route, man. We have an opportunity here. We got to take that opportunity, and we need to push it and push hard. That's why you saw gambling on the reservations. People then started seeing, oh, we could do more with that. And what I've been such a big proponent of trades and schools and things like that. Education, I think, is like a crucial factor for any ghetto, any barrio, any reservation, any place at all, and people really need to embrace that. It's just getting a lot more difficult, and especially like in the black communities where education, you will see a library there that's been there for years that got put there by the blood, sweat, and tears of the people that marched, but yet will get fucking taken out in a heartbeat just that way they can say they made jobs, but it turned out to be some fucking burger flipping jobs, just low end jobs, no education jobs. And it's like, well, wait a minute here, we got a library here, we're educating people. Why don't get some fucking opportunity for me, dude? I'm here to work. I'm not here to slack off. We're hardworking people, and it's just I can agree. It's like that opportunity that was there. And I remember we were talking about how the Black Panthers were a very dominant thing back in the 60s and 70s, where people were fending for one another. I mean, working for one another. They had programs that were working, and people were really starting to come together in the community. And sure shit, what the fuck happened? A goddamn gunfight, and now they're fucking thugs and hoods and shit. So, just, it's really sad. It really is sad. So, Brandy?
It's, I don't know. We're all saying, we're basically all saying the same thing. We all need to come together. We need to figure out a way to come together to try to change all of this shit. But like Damien said, um, what's it going to take? Is it going to take one of those white politicians' sons getting shot down in the street by a cop to make the change? Even within our own community, with going back to the riots in Baltimore and the mother who snatched her son up from being out there and rioting. She caught so much flack for doing that, but that's what we need. That's what we need, people who, not just mothers, but the influential black leaders in the world. We need people to do stuff like that. When you see other young black men and women doing wrong and doing shit that you know is going to end badly, they need to be slapped upside the head. They need to be pulled back by the coattails and been like, okay, what the fuck are you doing? Have you not seen what's going on? Why would you do something to put yourself in a position to end up like Trayvon Martin? Because had she not snatched up her son and pulled him back and got him out of that situation, he was headed over to those cops to throw a rock or bottle or whatever the hell it was he had in his hand at one of those cops, and he could have very well have ended up with a bullet. And then instead of her being on Good Morning America or the Today Show or CNN with her son talking about what happened, she'd be in tears on TV talking about it's not right, and she'd be burying her son. But we need more of that. So it's just like we keep saying, how do we get to that point? How do we get it to change? How do we get these kids to change what they're willing to die for? How do we get it to change from, okay, yeah, I'm willing to die for a pair of J's or an iPhone, to I'm willing to die to further what we're trying to do, to further my community, to further my school, to further my education? How do we get that transitional shift to happen? That's ultimately the question. Because even like Damien said, he could walk up to either one of us and slap us in the face with some words or with his hands. But then, okay, let's say you do that. What do you do when the person you're slapping with this knowledge still just, okay, you just slapped me with some knowledge. All right, well, it was good talking to you. I'll holler at you later, and walk off, and it's still the same shit it was before you knocked the hell out of it. So then what do you do? It's just, we just keep coming back to that. What do we do? How do we fix it? How do we change it?
Well, Brandy, I know you probably don't agree, but I personally don't agree with what the mother did in Baltimore. I think that, how can I put this? I think that if anything, because you're saying, okay, well, this kid was out there and he was getting ready to get into something that could have killed him, but at the same time, though, was he fighting a system that was already killing him? You see what I mean? Was he resisting a system that was already destroying the community? You see what I mean? So, like, it's kind of like you said before, there was the peaceful protest. We've been marching since the 60s. Nothing has changed. Things keep getting worse. So now we got this guy's killed. And with the whole thing with Baltimore, I've been talking to people. The stuff in Baltimore's been going on. So, going back to the definition, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Well, hey, we were peaceful. Now let's put some action into it. And we might have to show them that, hey, maybe we're not just going to roll over and show our bellies because you show up. We're tired. We're tired of this. We're tired of doing this. I think, but also with the mother that did it, I was like, okay, so you went out there and you did it. Now, if this mother had did this any other time, they would have been skewing her and calling her a child abuser. So it's okay to do it when he's resisting a system that is predominantly created by white folks to keep black folks at a level of subjugation. But when it comes to her just disciplining her own child because I'm in CVS, I'm in college talking bad to me, and I punch him in the face, oh, now, you're abusing the child. It's the hypocrisy of the situation and how she was being flaunted and applauded for that. And I'm just like, No. If anything, you should have been out there protesting with him. If anything, you should have been out there, showing your support. But she wasn't. She was at home. And then in our interview, she made the comment when she saw her son on TV or wherever she was looking at that she didn't want her pastor to see it. I'm like, really? So that was your driving force? I don't want. Then she amended it by saying, well, no, I'm looking out for my baby. I'm like, come on now. You meant what you said the first time. You don't want to be embarrassed. You want the church to see your son there because you know what? My son go to church. We go to church every Sunday. You teaching us to be peaceful and this, that, and the other. So I don't want to get embarrassed. But yeah, we going back to coming together and teaching the society and sharing with. You have to start early. I mean, even in educating at a young age, elementary school, you have, I guess, teachers out there who really don't really know how to handle our young black boys. Want to learn. Well, by the time third, fourth grade, now they're going to become violent and anger. Now they're starting to label these children at a certain age. And is it because I really don't understand you, or is it because if I go ahead and label the shit, then I take away this child's hope, or so on and so forth, so I can leave it for someone of my own race? And I think sometimes you have to, ask that question, and then you think of it when you talk to people of color who will sit there and discriminate against someone else because they're different. I mean, I can tell you the number of times I've heard people say things along the lines of, well, because this person has dreads or something, then he or she is not professional. So in order for you to be professional or to be taken seriously, one must cut one's hair. And I'm like, again, just that in itself, you have to educate someone on how, basically educate them and saying, hey, you know what? Just because I have my locks does not make me less than a person. Again, that is that fear that has been bred into you from oppressors from generations to say, hey, you know what? Because he's different, because he has his hair, because his hair is not cut short until the crown, then there is something wrong. And I say all that to say it's just, I don't know, it's just so much that we have to make up for. But then there's no excuse anymore because Damon shouldn't have to go and slap you with the knowledge because he doesn't have to do it. We have the internet. Everyone's on Snapchat. Everyone's on Instagram. Everyone's on Facebook. So there's really no excuse for educating yourself. It's just, do you desire to educate yourself? Or do you want to continue to be blissful in ignorance? I think that in itself, the whole saying of ignorance is bliss, is very true. When you think of the Matrix, think of the Matrix. I think it was a character where he turned on the group. Basically, he's sitting there. It was like, I know it's not real, but I was happy not knowing. I was happy in this fantasy. I was happy in the ignorance of what was going on. And I think what happens is going back to self. It's like, okay, well, as long as it doesn't inconvenience me, then it's not a problem. And I think people tend to do that. They tend to close their eyes or turn their head and say, oh, it'll just go away. Or, again, if it doesn't affect me directly, then it's not negative. It's not important. But as soon as it affects me, then it's like, oh, something got to do something. It's kind of like with the lady from, what was the thing, was Good Morning America? Was it Robin? What's her name? Robin? No. I can't think of woman's name, Robin something. But when she had cancer, now all of a sudden this big push for cancer research and this big thing out there, cancer. I'm like, well, my mom had breast cancer and there was no big push for it. I know this other lady that died from colon cancer. There was no big push for it. But all of a sudden it happened to you. Now it's this big push. So you have to get out of this whole mindset of, like you were saying before, me, and just about, I guess, how can I put this? I'm trying to think how I want to say this. This whole idea of, if it doesn't affect me directly, it's not a problem. Anytime it affects someone of my race, it's a problem.
Yeah, I can definitely see that argument. It's the blissful ignorance that we put ourselves into. really, and we just stay there. You know, we're just so stagnant. We want to actually do that, and take even today's society that we have. We've made everything such a fast fucking food. It's a fast food of fucking information. And we want to get it as fast as we can. I can create an application using this and stuff like that. But no, motherfucker, you got to get out there and code the fucking shit. You got to put the fucking work in. You can't sit there and just lollygag about it. You can't do that. But today's society, we've made it to where we do that. We just make it easier for ourselves to be more apathetic. We make ourselves more lazy. I think Ronald McDonald's gained a few pounds himself as well, and here we are today, you know, just going through the motions. And this is why a lot of that background stuff that is happening is because we're just constantly clouded by that kind of media, by that kind of hype, by that kind of mentality at all times. And when a person says that, if it doesn't bother me unless it's my race, and that's a huge fallacy, that people shouldn't do that. It affects everybody. Poor can affect anybody. Being poor affects anybody, and that affects your world. That affects everybody that's around you, no matter what, and you share a very common ground. Racism, no, obviously not, because that's obviously like a race. But think about poverty. Think about being, you know, not doing very well for yourself or anything like that. That causes a lot of these systemic problems, these chronic issues that we have in America today. And we also have this lack of opportunity, and people, like you said, Nate, just that blissful ignorance, just even on the people that are rich are even being blissfully ignorant. Oh, wait, it doesn't bother me. Look, there's no fucking ghettos in my house. No, there's no fucking shits. You decide to push it off over to here, you little asshole, you know, go fucking sip your wine and shit. But yes, I can definitely agree, man. It's so much that we it's just amazing that we see that. And even a fucking principal can go to the goddamn graduation and say the shit she said, and there's going to be no goddamn repercussion, none whatsoever. That's some fucking bullshit right there. And it's just amazing. It really honestly is, man. So that's my final word. Boss, what you got?
Well, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. We can't afford to sit around anymore. We simply can't, right? It's time for action. We just can't sit around doing shit anymore. We can find a way to get in line for a day or 2, 3 days for some tennis shoes, but we won't wait 2 to 3 hours at the college bookstore. You know, we find a way to get some weed, but we can't find a way to feed our children proper nutrition. You know, you feed them hot dogs and ramen and shit like that. You know, I see all the time memes. Take this $20 and feed your date. You know, come up with a way to spend $20 to make a meal to feed your date. Why not take $20 and figure out a way to feed your household? You know, fuck some pussy or fuck a piece, you know, some dick. Feed your goddamn household. You know, because I ain't never understood the mindset of how anybody can be worried about fucking with no money in your pocket or you're hungry. Anybody that knows me be the first person to tell you, I love pussy. I do. I swear for God, I do. But the last thing I'm thinking about when my finances is fucked up is some ass. So I'm thinking about, what do I need to do to get my stomach to stop hurting? What do I need to do to get some groceries in the icebox? Those situations came about clearly because my economic situation is fucked up. You see? So in order for me to clear my economic woes, I need to get some cash flow coming into my pockets. I need some ducats. You see what I'm saying? So I say all that to say that, how is it that you can be focused on any goddamn thing else, trivial, or I guess trivial is It's subjective. But I'll still use the word. How can you be focused on trivial shit when you got bigger fish to fry going on around you? You waiting in line for 2 to 3 days to spend $200 to $300 on a pair of shoes, or somebody will walk up on you and put a 10-cent bullet in you and take from you. You understand me? Explain that. So not only did you waste your time, you wasted your money and lost your life. Huge loss. But you won't stand in line to register yourself for school, be it a GED, be it at a community college, or be it at a Division I university. You won't stand in line for that because it's become cool to be ignorant. You know, if you think back in the day, back when we were in high school, graduating, mid-90s. Well, Brandy, that might be a little longer for you, but you know, back when Nate and I were in school, 93, 94, about to graduate, there was what was called a huge consciousness, a movement of consciousness amongst the black people. Right? You couldn't go anywhere without hearing "Fight the Power," seeing a Malcolm X hat or an African medallion around somebody's neck. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing that. Those days long gone, and those are probably days that we'll never revert to, even with history repeating itself. Those are days that we're never going to see again. Right? Even though the shit goes in waves, you had the black consciousness movement from the 50s and the 60s, and then you had it die down and people went to sleep during the 70s and the early 80s, and the whole free love and we're pimping and driving big cars and dressing like clowns and all that shit was popular and cool. I mean, it generated some great music. It really and truly did. However, those times weren't prosperous for us. We slowed down, we went to sleep, we lost our momentum. Then Chuck D said, "Fight the power." Woke us all up again. And there was this huge movement of consciousness amongst us that lasted for about a good 10 years. About a good 10 years. And just like a light switch, it went off. Well, what's it gonna take to turn that light switch back on? The most recent Public Enemy album, probably 20 years old. To people like you and I, us, that information is still relevant today because I'm still a huge proponent. Still listen to Chuck D. Still listen to Public Enemy. I still listen to the message by Grandmaster Flash. I still listen to Political Militant Ice Cube. I still listen to those, right? Still listen to NWA's Fuck the Police. Matter of fact, I passed by the police listening to Fuck the Police with the windows down. Right? But what's it going to take to get back to that? Because now we got shit like truffle butter. You got shit like Anaconda. You got Lil Wayne on an album whining about nothing. You got Drake crying over a bitch that he never had. That's the kind of shit that we got right now ringing in our children's ears because you'll never hear another KRS-One. You'll never hear another Chuck D. Right? You'll never hear another Love's Gonna Get You. You're never going to hear another Edutainment. You're never going to hear another Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos. You're just going to hear shit like Young Thug. You're going to hear just a bunch of bullshit. Right? Is that by design? Yeah, I happen to think so. And the whole time you have this ignorance playing in your head, laying on your consciousness, you steady have the George Zimmermans, the Michael Dunns, the whomevers, the cops, the whatever they are. You have them steady out there killing us. Because it's not that we can't wake up, we just don't want to. Walking around sounding like Mushmouth from Fat Albert has become the new articulation. And that's sad. That's utterly fucking sad. Sagging. I could go on for another hour on this topic. I don't want to put the blame on somebody, but if somebody would demand better, we would do better. right? So I'll expand on that real quick. And I'm not saying that it's any one person or gender's fault, but I would challenge 100 women, 100, to tell a man that approaches him talking crazy, weed on his breath, clothes too damn big, sagging, shit like that. I would challenge 100 women to turn that guy away and tell him, hey, articulate yourself a little bit better, get you some clothes that fit, maybe a tailor-made suit. Hell, off the rack. Just get a fucking suit. Speak like you got some good sense. Comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face and your ass. Change your socks. Come back and talk to me like you got some sense. Open your mouth and articulate. And let's see what then happens. Let's see what happens then. Let's see if we have a movement of our brothers stepping it the fuck up because our women have asked them to do so. And that's not any relation or tied to any particular race, right? Because everybody knows that we're the most emulated culture as well as the most hated. One goes hand in hand with the other. Everybody wants to be black, but nobody wants to be black. There ain't a motherfucker on the face of this earth as good looking as I am that would change places with me. At all. At all. Right? I put that challenge out there. Report your findings. Report your findings. Let's see if we can institute a change. Let's see if we can get back to where we were 25 years ago. 25, yeah, let's see if we can get back there. Because then that's when we're going to have, a lot of this shit here is going to stop. Because I'm not saying that it wasn't happening then, and it may just be because of social media that it's more prevalent. But I know in my day back then, you wasn't hearing, you heard of the twos and the fews, but you wasn't hearing too much about this kid being randomly killed in the goddamn street. A person being killed in the fucking store because he's buying his son a toy. You don't hear about that no more. The reason why that type of shit is happening is because what's being put into the atmosphere about us, what we're putting out there ourselves. That kind of shit has to stop. It's got to stop. With that, I'd like to say, it was a good run. I appreciate those that watched or will watch. I really appreciate your feedback. You know where to find us. You can find us at the Damian Giles Discussion Group on Facebook. If you're not a member of the group already, we'd love to have you join. Just look us up and we'll bring you into the conversation. But I will tell you, don't come in there with no bullshit. Don't come in talking about the latest Lil Wayne album because you're going to get your ass run out of there. We talk about relevant shit. And that's the way we intend to keep it. So, with that said, Brandy, thank you. Nate, thank you. Ben, thank you. We go live August 1st. This was just an impromptu. We're still working our bugs out. We're going to get better as time goes on. That's it. Good night. And we look to hear some feedback from you.